Good evening and welcome. I will now call the special board meeting of September 29th, 2025 to order. We begin this meeting with our land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island, First Nation, the Mississauga people, and the treaty territory of the Chippewa of Georgina Islands First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. As we hold this acknowledgement in our hearts, we recognize that tomorrow, September 30th, as the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. This day honors the children who never returned home from residential schools, the survivors who carry their stories, and the families and communities who continue to live with the intergenerational impacts of that system. More than 150,000 children were taken from their families and communities and placed into residential schools that operate in this country from 1867 to 1996. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation was established in direct response to the 94 calls to action of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. As we mark 10 years since the release of that report, we are reminded that reconciliation is not an event, but an ongoing responsibility. It calls on each of us to reflect on the progress that has been made to recognize and advance Indigenous rights, and on the work that lies ahead to uphold and protect them. As a school board, reconciliation is a responsibility we carry with intention. We are committed to removing barriers, addressing inequities in education, and creating spaces of belonging and opportunity for Indigenous students and staff. In partnership with community and education leaders, we are developing new leadership pathways that will create career progression opportunities for First Nation, Inuit, and Métis educators. This evening, as we begin our work together, we do so with this commitment at the forefront of our minds and hearts. Are there any declarations of interest? There are no declarations of interest at this time. Can I please have a mover and seconder to approve the agenda as distributed? Thank you, Trustee Linton. Thank you, Trustee Pinello. All in favour? The agenda is approved as distributed. We will now move to recommended actions. We have one recommendation on our agenda this evening. Are there any trustees willing to move and second the recommendation to adopt the September 29th, 2025 resolution from the Committee of the Whole in-camera meeting regarding a human resources matter? Thank you, Trustee Cunningham. Thank you, Trustee Morton. Are there any discussion? Are we ready to vote on the motion before us? Can you please use your cards to indicate? Oh, all in favour? Any opposed? Thank you. That motion is carried. Seeing no further business, can I please have a mover and seconder to adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Trustee Oldfield. Thank you, Trustee Jackula.
Good evening. I'm now calling the September 29th, 2025 Standing Committee meeting to order. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. Are there any declarations of interest? And seeing none, there are no declarations of interest at this time. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda? Trustee Cunningham, seconder, Trustee Brown. Moving on to recommended actions. The first is the approval of standing committee meeting minutes of September 3rd, 2025. Can I have a mover? Trustee Litton, and the seconder, Trustee Cunningham. Any questions? All those in favor? It's carried. Next is a motion highlighting the importance of school board trustees. And I'll call on Trustee Pinello.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I would like to move the following motion: that the Board of Trustees directs staff to prepare and issue a public statement to the communities we serve, which, 1, outlines the essential role of elected trustees in representing and advocating for students, families, and communities within the education system. 2, summarizes the advocacy, initiatives, and efforts trustees of this board have undertaken to protect and enhance public education, equity, and student well-being. 3, provides clear, accessible information and resources to help families and community members understand the importance of the role of elected school board trustees. And 4, encourages families and community members to engage in advocacy efforts to ensure that local voices remain central in decisions affecting their children's education.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Trustee Cunningham? Bring it up for debate and turn it back to you, Trustee Pinello.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. And I will try to keep this brief. My fellow trustees around the board understand that we are in a political climate at the moment, both with Bill 33 and the province looking at boards of trustees with varying degrees of scrutiny. And so the idea that there is a chance that we disappear tomorrow, I think that it's important that we do our due diligence ahead of time and make sure that our communities understand what exactly it is we do, because I'm not the only one who goes out in community and has to explain the role of a trustee, I'm sure. What it is we do, how it gets done, why we do it, of course, but also what they can do if we do cease to exist within this board structure. So compiling resources so that they know who they can reach out to for assistance. Most of the time, communities will reach out to us or whoever they can find and share their stories, and we help redirect to staff that are appropriate to help them in their journeys. But if we disappear tomorrow, I think making sure that folks have the resources that they need and the information that they need to continue advocating for their children and their families and the quality of education that they get publicly is very important. So this, again, is a public statement. I'm not going to say a love letter to our communities, but sort of a love letter to our communities from us with the tools that they will need, as opposed to an advocacy effort outwards towards the minister. So that's the intention behind the motion, and I look forward to the discussion and opinions around the table. Thank you, Chair.
Trustee Edwards.
Thank you. And, I appreciate this motion coming forward and the fact that, as rated, Bill 33 does basically change the Education Act. And there, as far as what restricts the role of trustees significantly and also allows the Ministry of Education to put boards under supervision fairly quickly. And it isn't taking long that, you know, we've seen many articles in the newspaper as far as what, in the media basically, and around concerns raised for those boards that have been put under supervision, and around equity. Particularly, we've heard concerns raised on a mandatory reintroduction of police service resource officers in schools that could potentially harm or reintroduce harm to Indigenous, Black, and marginalized students. Parents' calls not being returned. Parents' calls, you know, not being returned, particularly for students who have special needs. Concerns around basically the loss of democracy and parent-giver voice through their elected trustee. I would like to suggest a substitution motion that basically instead of puts the work on staff to do, but it coincides with the local government week that is coming up. Basically, I believe it's the 19th to the 25th, October 19th to the 25th, as far as that's concerned. And so I'm recommending this alternate language that the Board of Trustees direct staff to amplify the upcoming local government week in order to highlight the importance of the role of locally elected trustees and other elected officials in advancing the interest of the community. And the reason why I say that is that the local government week is an opportunity, and OPSPUG does give guidance. We have templates, and so opportunity for trustees to basically go into schools to talk about local governance, exactly what we do. It allows us to talk
Trustee Edwards, sorry, can I get a seconder and then you can speak to it? Can you do it that way? Thanks. Trustee Arsenault, you're seconding? Thank you. So I'm going to ask Jillian to put both motions up. And now I can put it back to you, Donna. and
Sorry.
speak to it.
The alternate, as I said, wording does allow us to basically as trustees do the work, going out to the local community, basically also going into schools, inviting us in with the support of staff to really do what was identified in the original motion as far as what we do, what we advocate for, and that we are really the amplification of voice of our constituents who elect us, because, you know, we are the only elected officials whose sole responsibility is for education and the success of our students. So that's what I'm suggesting as far as the alternate wording. Thank you.
On the, I'm going to call it an amendment. On the amendment, you're speaking to that, Trustee Cunningham?
I am speaking to that. If we move forward with this alternate motion, I would propose an amendment to the amendment that says to amplify the upcoming local government week by highlighting the importance of the role. And I think that would include a lot of what Trustee Pinello was hoping to gain in the original motion, while also including the local government week. But I think by highlighting is, to me, key in making sure people still take away the importance of the role of elected trustees and understanding what exactly it is that we do.
Okay, on the amendment to the amendment, first I'm going to look at trustees. Is there any opposition to that slight change to that, other than having a chain of amendment motions here? Okay, seeing no opposition to that. Any other discussion on the amendment? Trustee Pinello?
Thank you. Through you, I thank you, Trustee Edwards, for your amendment. I think disagree not with the content, but rather the application. So as opposed to a substitution, I would actually see this as an addition to the initial motion, where this, and the amplification of local government week, because the difference here is that this is a call to action. This is a duty that we have to do local government week, which is important. And also the intent behind the public statement is so that communities and families have the resources they need to advocate in our absence. So this goes beyond just our efforts to educate people on the importance of the role of trustees. It is also a tool that can be used if we were to disappear tomorrow. So I don't want to necessarily replace that with advocacy, but I definitely would add the advocacy piece to this as our call to action and the additional amplification of that work, because that's an important part of what we have to do and what we do. So that's what I would respectfully put forward for consideration, just because I think the intents are definitely aligned, but the way in which we do them, I think, is a little bit different.
Okay, so my understanding from Trustee Edwards is that what she's put forward is to replace what is there. So what I'm going to do is vote on the amendment. That's not to say if the amendment passes, then that is the actual motion. If it doesn't pass, then someone has the ability to make another amendment to add it as an addition. Does that sound like, okay. So any further discussions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor? On the amendment? All those opposed? So you understand the amendment that the Board of Trustees directs staff to amplify the upcoming local government week in order by highlighting the importance of the role of locally elected trustees and other elected officials in advancing the interests of the community, that would, if it passes, it would substitute and replace the initial motion. So when you're voting, if you're voting in favor of the amendment, you're voting for that as the motion itself. If that doesn't pass, then we have the ability to go back and to the original motion, either pass it as it is or make an amendment to add this portion, this recommendation from Trustee Edwards. We have the ability to do other things. But I just want you to be clear what you're voting on right now.
Also, if this becomes the new main motion, that also could be subject to amendment.
Right. So all those in favor of the amendment, the substitution amendment, this substituted phrase, paragraph, all those in favor? Okay. Opposed? Okay, so that didn't pass, so I'm going to go back to the initial motion. And is there any further conversation on the main motion?
Through you, Chair, just a point of clarification, given that the motion starts with Board of Trustees direct staff to prepare and issue a public statement. That is somewhat unusual for staff to be issuing a public statement on behalf of trustees. And so I would ask that a reconsideration of that wording be undertaken because it skates on the edge of being actually inappropriate. So I would just put that back on the table.
No further conversation? Would someone like to move that amendment on behalf of the director? She's not. Well, you're saying that it's not something that staff's comfortable with, so it seems like something we ought to look at.
Perhaps, I don't know if the initial mover of the motion has other wording, she's smiling at me, or I could suggest something different if you prefer. To?
Okay, I'm going to go to trustee Pinello.
Thank you, Chair and Director, through you. Yes, so we had a couple different draft wordings when I was working on this, and so if you feel it would be more appropriate, there was collaborate or work with proposed as well, as opposed to direct, and so I'd be content with either of those two, just depending on appropriativeness, but I think work with might be respectful of some of the boundaries between the lines, if that's appropriate. And I would be happy to also move the addition of the previous amendment that failed to add as .5 to this. If I could move both of those amendments at the same time, and maybe we discuss that if that pleases the board.
Is there any objection to the two amendments, doing them both at the same time? Seeing none, I need a seconder. Trustee Linton? Was there an objection to that, Trustee Brown? Okay. Well,
Thank
it's
you.
still on the floor as a motion,
you.
so we're going to have to debate
Um,
it. So,
Well, it wasn't so much of a debate, it was more just of a clarification, because we've just put back in direct staff in .5, so maybe we should be amending that before we second it. That way we don't have to do another amendment.
I see what you're saying. In .5, it says, yeah, we can amend that language and take out direct staff. And make it consistent, so it's work with again. Anyone opposed to me that change? All right. Trustee Linton, were you seconding that amendment, or were you putting your hand up to? Yeah, good, okay. So it's seconded. Any debate? Trustee Miller, on the amendment.
So a point of clarification, just on the approval for the amendment or the whole motion with the amendment?
It's the amendment, so it's the two, it's anything that's highlighted and underlined in red. That's the amendment. That's what we're voting on?
Okay, so I did want to just add a comment. I was just, because it does say work with staff. It does change the wording. However, I just wanted to note that in terms of trustees' role, I have seen where boards have outlined under the trustee section, they have outlined what the role of trustees in their board. I'm not sure as to the details in terms of exactly Trustee Pinello's, in terms of what she was specifically looking for, but I am just wondering if that is possibly another route, maybe to identify through our board what trustees do in our trustee section. Just a thought of consideration.
Okay, so council has just suggested that we, just reading the amendment and adding the amendment, instead of adding it as a 5, that we take out 5 and that it's a standalone paragraph, so I would.
Yeah, we either need to, through you, Chair, we either need to make it a standalone paragraph, not number 5, or delete the language that the Board of Trustees work with staff, because that's already there. So it's one or the other. So I think if I could, on the chair's behalf, suggest somebody move that amendment, one of those amendments, clean that up.
Trustee Arsenault? Move the amendment, second. Trustee Jackula? On that amendment. So we're clear, we're changing now the one that's .5 and taking out .5 and taking out the repetitive language. And I'll wait for Jillian to,
Yeah, I think if we remove the repetitive language, it can stay number 5 now.
oh, okay,
So that
yeah. All right, got it. So this is as it stands, so any questions or comments on this amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of this amendment? Okay. That passes. And now we're back to the actual, all the red underlined, so, no, don't take it out yet.
So that was just my amendment, Jillian. So we're back to the red underline amendment.
So now, in the beginning of the motion with work with, and the content, the rest of the content of number 5 is what's before us. Any further discussion on that amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Now back to the main motion. Any further questions, comments on the main motion? Trustee Edwards?
Just a comment in that a lot of this information, when it comes to, are we just looking at local initiatives and so forth? Because as a whole, trustees as a whole through OPSPA have done a lot of changes that have impacted education over the years. I can think of a few examples, like the Children and Youth Mental Health Coalition that has significantly impacted on how we receive funds and how we deliver mental health collaboratively with our partners, and that has moved that agenda. I can also think of basically the around French immersion, the shortage of French immersion teachers and so forth, and the work that was done by OPSPA and its collaborative working groups. So and that information can all be provided through media releases, etc., and information that was previously provided by the board. But I think it's really important that collaboratively, it's not only locally that we bring our voices to a provincial table.
Okay, Trustee Linton?
Thank you, and for you, Chair. Yeah, I think my only question, and now this might be an offline conversation, is just the timing, because local government week is in 2 weeks. So I agree with the motion and the spirit of this. I'm just concerned about the actual application and implementation of how this works, to gather staff, work with them, come up with something we agree with, and then put it out within a week. So just maybe through the director, if this is feasible in terms of timing and his suggestions on implementation.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So there are a couple of timing issues. October 19th to 25, the board meeting actually happens in between. And so technically and typically, a motion that is passed at standing would not become activated until after the board adopts it. So that's the first timing challenge. The second piece, however, I think Trustee Edwards spoke to it already, is the fact that because Local Government Week does come up and is supported through OPSPA, there's a significant body of material already created and in place. So it would be a question of galvanizing that material and making it available to trustees. So in this particular circumstance, with the trustees' agreement, we'll of course expect that a motion be properly adopted. We would be supporting trustees in Local Government Week anyway, and so what we would be undertaking to do is support much of this work going into Local Government Week, and I do think the definition of local would be expanded to include include local to the province, but to take the spirit and intention of this to enable trustees to advance this messaging and then officially adopt the other piece mid that week, in which case after that, if there's a statement that needs to be made, then it can happen subsequent. So that should look after all of the timing issues for you.
Thank you. Trustee Morton?
Thank you, and through you. I think it's really important that we reach out to the community and let them know the role of the trustee. But I don't think it should be the role of the Durham District School Board trustees. It should be provincial trustees. So looking at number 2, summarizes the advocacy initiatives and efforts trustees of this board have undertaken to protect and enhance public education. I'm not terribly comfortable because we're talking about only our board, and I think we should be talking about the role of trustee in general for the province. So I'm wondering if the person who put forward this motion might consider removing number 2. Just a thought.
Or Trustee Morton, you could consider an amendment. Maybe take out of this board.
My point is, it should be, this whole thing is about the role of the trustee, the importance to the community. It's not about our board and what we have done. So if you'd like me to put forward an amendment, or if you would like to make a change, you're thinking on it.
Trustee Pinello?
Thank you, Chair, and through you, if Trustee Morton does choose to put forward the amendment, I'll leave that to you. I hear you on the individuality. I think when it was drafted, so point 1 sort of captures elected trustees as a whole through the province. Point 3 also role of elected school board trustees as a whole. And point 4, families and community members, of course, we have ours, but that expands. But I think number 2 offers a little bit of the local lens that often gets lost when we reshare some OPSPA. And if you disagree, that I totally respect that. I think sometimes it gets lost because our board is a little different than other boards, and sometimes I think that's a good thing. Like, there are programs and initiatives that we have undertaken that others have not, because it fits for our communities and what the needs are here. We've learned from other boards, we've adopted some of their ideas, and we've done things jointly with our provincial trustee bodies. I think that it offers an opportunity for us to show both lenses, both provincial and local. But if folks would prefer an overall provincial, I'm not opposed to it. I just think it's also nice when we can tie in the specificity and the equity that has been intentionally shown within what this board and the staff have worked towards somewhere within this statement, so folks know it's not just the broad spectrum brush, it's also Durham region. That means the north, that means from Pickering to Oshawa and everyone in between. There has been thoughtfulness and advocacy locally that we want them to have the tools to continue should trustees no longer be available to serve. So I leave that to your discretion, Trustee Morton, but I think that was the rationale in both lenses.
Trustee Arsenault?
Thank you, Chair. I do feel the same as Trustee Morton. It's just a matter of changing out the words. If you have not put forth the motion, I would like to, or I can second it, where it says trustees of this board, because the idea is to give family members, community members, parents, the idea of what we do, how we do it for them, what we're doing to protect their children, and what our governance is, the role in whole. Number 5 is, our role when we do the that specific week and we're out there in schools and talking to parents, then we can get more into specifically what we do. But I would like to either put forth the motion or second the motion of just removing that one part there where it says trustees of this board, so it's just, it'd be.
So you would be the mover. I didn't hear anyone move it at the other end. And just to be clear, it's what of this board. Those are the three words that would change the meaning of that.
Because it's to
sentence.
give the families the idea of what we do. Not what we
Okay,
do,
okay.
what the role of a trustee.
So I'm going to look for a seconder. Is there a seconder to that amendment? Trustee Morton? Okay, so now we're debating this amendment. Want to talk to this? Trustee Cunningham?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I like the idea of some local flavor in this. I think it personalizes and humanizes it to the people in Durham Region to see what we're doing for students right here. I think that people are more likely to support when they see it being active in their community. And I think that being able to show how trustees have impacted Durham Region and their students right here makes a powerful statement, because it brings things to them that they might otherwise not care about, because it doesn't feel relevant to their particular interests and their children. So I don't support the amendment. I think it's good to show what's happening in Durham Region, as well as just talking about what trustees do on a general basis.
Trustee Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I 100% agree with Trustee Cunningham. I don't support this at all. This is definitely about Durham Region. That's where we are living, working right now. And those are the students that we need to be. That's our main focus. I know not everyone agrees, but I don't see that this particular motion, I think we have other motions that we talk about the whole province or federally, and I think on this particular occasion, we need to look at this board, and if we're not here, what happened? So I totally agree with this motion that we need to get communication out there to the parents, to the students, to staff, to say that if this happens, then this is your route. So I think this motion, in my opinion, is for this board. So I would actually like to amend a motion to go back to put back of this board back in the motion.
No, we're just going to vote either it passes or it dies.
Okay.
So, it's the motion, the amendment's on the floor, you
Thank
get
you,
to speak
Chair
to it and
Oldfield.
you get to vote on it. That's it right now. Trustee Edwards?
Thank you. I'm in support of the amendment because of this board precludes putting information about what this board has contributed to the province that has affected every student across the thing. And it's about the role of the trustee, not our individual positions sitting around this table. And it's so I fully support removing of this board, because we can still, doesn't preclude us putting in some of the things that we have done as to localize it. But what it does do is not saying, because the role of the trustee, the information that we have brought forward around mental health, around French immersion, shortage of French teachers, etc., we can also add that, because it's the role around this board and every board to support all students. So I support this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else, I'm going to speak to this. I'm not in favor of this amendment. I agree with Trustee Cunningham. I think it's important. I think if you read this whole motion, there's a lot of opportunity to speak provincially, to speak about, broadly what trustees do, but I think it's important that we talk about what's happening here in Durham, what has happened here in Durham. I think people do want to relate to it. Like, what does it mean for me? What does it mean for my children? What does it mean for our schools? What does that look like? And I think having it in there gives us the ability to do all of that, to talk provincially. And there's all kinds of information out there provincially and broadly. This is a conversation that is happening provincially. And so where's the conversation that's happening locally? Because I haven't seen anything locally. And I think that that's a disservice to the community to not be having the conversations and to be able to provide information locally. And so I'm against the amendment. Seeing no one else on the list, I'm going to call the question and, oh, sorry, Trustee Thatcher.
Slow. Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. You know, I think that every time I respond to an email or speak to a parent on the phone, I just hope that there's that I leave them with the thought that myself or other trustees on the Durham board are concerned about the well-being of their children, of our students. I was just thinking about what happened out in Manitoba, and I think it's Alan Campbell who has spoken a great deal about how they dealt with this situation and how they were able to salvage the trustees in their province. And it wasn't because they were patting themselves on the back in any way. It's that good news needs to come from our families in the community. Our families, I think with this here, and I applaud trustees for bringing this forward. I think particularly doing this during that particular week in October is a good idea. But we need to cover all aspects of this. But I think that anything to do with what we do here in Durham region needs to come from our parents, and that was what salvaged the trustees out in Manitoba. So, thank you.
Student Trustee Singh.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I actually have a question. If we're going to go forward with this wording, are we qualified to speak on behalf of other trustees across the province? Because we can speak about our specific efforts and initiatives, but would it be overreaching our authority to comment on other trustees' efforts? Because there, as other trustees mentioned, there are plenty of opportunities that we're covering this as a provincial issue and a provincial problem. But yeah, that's my question.
Any takers on wanting to answer that question?
I think that we can comment based on because again, it's what the role of that we've done. As we have elected trustees that sit on the Ontario Public School Board, as well as student trustees that sit on Otsego. In the past, we've had student trustees. They represent the voice provincially and the concerns around the table as well. And that's the other thing that isn't being addressed here as well, as student voice, to tell you the truth, and student trustees. But we do have, because we have the information that what trustees have done at a provincial level, what they've made through OPSPA.
Okay, seeing no further speakers, I'm going to ask for a vote. I'm going to ask you to use your card. So on this amendment, which is removing of this board, all those in favor? And hold your cards up for a bit, because I have to count. All those opposed? Okay. So it failed. So it's going back in. And now back to the main motion. Any questions on the main motion? Trustee Pinello?
Just very briefly, thank you, Chair. If I could ask for a recorded vote for the next vote, thanks.
Sure. Trustee Edwards?
I still have a problem with the wording around prepare and issue a public statement, because that's a finite thing. I think this is going to be ongoing, and I know that the thing is it's finite. Issue a public statement, that's it, as far as it's concerned. That outlines this, that does that. It's one document. And then, yes, they're going to be support, but this is our work. This is the role of trustees around the table. So, I see it very finite, particularly with the issue of a public statement. That's one article that goes out, and what happens with that, the effectiveness of that. Whereas if, how many our trustees or how many, what are we going to do around local governance week? I just have a huge problem with that one statement, which is very finite.
Okay, there's been a request for a recorded vote, so I'm going to pass it over to Jillian. So on the main motion that is up here on the screen. Oh, sorry, Carolyn.
Sorry, I'm just thinking that if we make it about what we have done, and we've done this and this and this, we could have pushback. There could be people in our communities who are not happy with the education that we have provided. They may come forward and say, but you haven't done this and you haven't done that. I'm hoping that wouldn't happen, but that is a possibility when you make it about this is what we do, this is what we have done. Just a thought.
Trustee Miller?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to connect with previous thoughts from Trustee Thatcher. I do see that it is important to have the voice of the community that we represent. In terms of any feedback, I am not one for, I do see and understand the importance of this motion in terms of the value that it represents. I think that there are ways that we could go about this a little bit differently that we haven't really discussed here. So at this time, I'm more in support of having the community have to speak for what are the service we provided and give their feedback versus putting out something from our end. It just doesn't feel very comfortable, and I do agree with Trustee Edwards' previous comment about it feeling finite. It is a continuous work, so I tend to agree, and so I'm not in favor.
So just, if you read the whole motion, instead of looking at individual sections, I think that it's important to look at the whole motion. I support it because I hear what you're saying, Trustee Miller. I look at point 4, and it says encourages families and community members to engage in advocacy efforts to ensure that local voices remain central in decisions affecting their children's education. That means having conversations with parents. That means helping them advocate and engage. So I feel like this motion talks about what's happening locally, what's happening provincially, the role of the trustees, engaging the community, engaging parents. To me, when I read the whole thing, I'm comfortable with it because I think it addresses all of those things, not only this, not only that. Now we've added the local government week, which is a good addition. It covers that now. It seems very, very fulsome and thorough and gives us a lot of opportunity to do all of the things that I've heard from trustees around the table. So I'm in support of the motion. And unless someone turns on their light, I think I'm the last speaker, and I'm going to call for the recorded vote.
Thank you, Chair. I'll call the recorded vote. Trustee Arsenault?
In favor of the vote.
Thank you. Trustee Brown?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Cowie?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Cunningham?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Edwards?
Opposed.
Thank you. Trustee Jackula.
Favor.
Thank you. Trustee Linton.
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Miller.
Opposed.
Trustee Morton.
Opposed?
Trustee Pinello.
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Thatcher.
In favor.
And Chair Oldfield.
In favor.
Thank you. I'll call the student trustee non-binding vote. Student trustee Render.
In favor.
Thank you. Student trustee Shetty.
In favor.
Thank you. And student trustee Singh.
In favor.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have 9 trustees in favor, 3 trustees not in favor, and 3 student trustees in favor.
Great, thank you. So that motion carries. Moving on to information items. And we have the 2025 Summer Learning Impact Report, and I'll turn it over to Superintendent Hammett.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Oldfield. The 2025 Summer Learning Impact Report can be found on page 8 of your package. This report highlights the learning opportunities offered across Durham District School Board during the summer months of July and August 2025. Each year, these programs play an important role in supporting student success and well-being beyond the regular school year. They provide students with opportunities to strengthen foundational skills in literacy and math, deepen their sense of identity and belonging, and continue developing the confidence and curiosity they bring into the classroom. This summer's programming included kindergarten readiness initiatives, multilingual language support, credit-bearing secondary courses, and learning rooted in Indigenous and Afrocentric perspectives. Several programs were intentionally designed to support transitions, whether welcoming students into school for the first time, preparing them for the move to secondary, or helping students develop life skills towards independence strengthened in social setting. We also continue to offer leadership pathways and community-based experiences through programs such as Focus on Youth and Center for Success. The body of the report offers a system-wide view of summer learning, while Appendix A provides program-level highlights, participation data, and considerations to inform planning for the year ahead. This report is provided to trustees for information.
Thank you. Any questions from trustees? Okay. Student trustee Shetty?
I was just reviewing the numbers for the Center of Success and the Focus on Youth programs, 18 and 36 students respectively, and I was just wondering, is there a cap on participation due to funding limitations, or were there simply a lack of applicants?
So I'll speak to the Focus on Youth. That is a funded program, and so we maximize the funding to ensure that as many students can take advantage of that program as possible.
Trustee Linton?
Thank you, and 2 quick questions. I think the report is very clear, and it really does highlight the student and family successes. And so, again, just think it's a great initiative for the board to have. But my 2 questions, one is just around measuring and tracking the long-term impact of these programs. So are we looking at data around how students who enter these courses or take these courses are performing within the regular school year?
Yes, so we can speak specifically about the Great Beginnings program and the grades 1 to 8 program. So in those programs, we do do some data collection and do share that back to the schools that the students go to. Particularly with the Great Beginnings program, because it's happening right before school starts, there tends to be a much more seamless transition into the school programs with all of the familiarity that comes with that. Similarly, with the grade 1 to 8 program, the feedback to the homeroom teachers is tracked. And we have started enrollment for the program earlier. Typically, we start that enrollment quite early, actually, in February, March, and start progressing. So we're always analyzing which students from which communities register to make sure that we create and hold spaces and really refine the program to ensure that the students who might benefit from that consolidation are given priority in registration.
Student trustee Shetty?
Sorry, just to clarify, so the Focus on Youth program, was everyone who applied to the program accepted, or did they have to go through an interview process and then some people were eliminated?
I'm not sure if if there was people who applied who didn't go in, but there is an interview process, and there is an opportunity for students to develop skills through that. We don't typically, and I'll have to check with the site lead, but we don't typically hold a wait list for that. So I do believe that most of the students who have put their names forward were accepted into that program. But I can follow up on that exact point with you.
Yes, I would appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Trustee Linton.
Thank you. Last question. Just so, where the demand exceeds supply. So, looking at the therapeutic recreation program and the Indigenous programming, are there any plans to expand the capacity of these programs, but maintaining the program quality?
Yes, so in the report, you'll see that a good number of these programs are funded through the responsive education grants. We do set aside some funding from our core educational funding for that. So it's a funding piece. The more funding we get, the more spaces that we can create. But the government is starting to track who is enrolled, who is taking summer programs now through Register. So we are hopeful that funding not only maintains but increases, and as the funding increases, the spots will increase.
Seeing no further questions, move on to the report from the Trustee Professional Learning Working Group. And turning it to Trustee Miller.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I am pleased to be sharing this report on behalf of the Trustee Professional Learning Working Group, which was established in January 2025. The report is found at pages 20 to 27 of the agenda and includes a summary of discussions which took place in the first two meetings of the working group in February and September 2025. Appendix A of the report includes a listing of professional learning sessions the board has had the opportunity to participate in since November of 2022, and also includes the list of proposed session dates and subjects for the remainder of the current school year. The working group carries out its meetings and discussion in accordance with the Trustee Professional Learning Framework, which is included as Appendix B of the report. The framework includes foundational principles, value propositions, and themes or subjects of interest to be considered when developing trustee learning opportunities. The report also explores the potential risk and benefits of learning sessions if learning sessions were to be recorded. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Any questions from trustees? Trustee Edwards.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if the report actually mentions the mandatory requirement that was put forward by the ministry, and as far as the 4 online sessions, as well as the several modules that had been completed in there. I don't think it mentions that, or am I wrong?
Thank you, through you, Chair. You are correct. It does not reference the OESC professional learning modules. Essentially, it is a synopsis of the Trustee Professional Learning Group, Professional Learning Working Group. If you go to the framework, that is at the end, that is attached. The framework does in fact speak to the multiple ways that trustees engage in learning, but the particular report spoke to the Professional Learning Working Group and giving trustees a summary of what has been undertaken in this board for trustees here.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the student trustee report. And someone has to put their mic on over there.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. On September 18th, we held our inaugural Student Senate Executive Meeting, followed immediately by a General Assembly meeting. The executive meeting was focused on giving senators a strong introduction to how Senate functions. We walked through crucial governing documents such as our Senate Constitution, and we built in time for senators to network, ask questions, and begin making connections with one another. The feedback received from the session was extremely positive. Senators appreciated the platform to ask questions and the opportunity to meet peers in leadership roles across the board. The general meeting that followed gave senators a broader introduction to their roles and responsibilities. They were welcomed by Director Camille Williams-Taylor, who shared an inspiring message about the importance of student leadership in our board and the themes of courage, influence, and service. We also heard from Andrea Pemberton, the System Lead of Leadership Development, who spoke about the Student Senate Leadership Award and planning communication to students through Student Senate. Overall, our Student Senate team is incredibly well-rounded and eager to collaborate this year. Additionally, we appointed individuals to the positions of Communications Coordinator and Secretary for the 2025-2026 school year, and we extend our congratulations to them as they step into these important roles.
Start of year messages are being sent out to each secondary school principal on behalf of the student trustees and the Student Senate. These messages will include introductions to the current Student Senate, the President of the Student Senate, and the Vice President. These messages will also detail the responsibilities of our roles in the hope of continuing to build strong connections with every one of our school communities. We are anticipating the feedback will allow us to understand the pulse of our communities better. During this meeting, we also formed an ad hoc committee composed of student senators who will provide us with ongoing input into the planning of Senate activities and initiatives. This enables the development of events and initiatives that are thoughtfully designed by students for students. Additionally, the introductory posts for our Student Senate and Student Trustees Instagram pages have been uploaded. This initiative allows us to connect with a vast majority of secondary students, facilitating connections between students among the board, and of course, putting faces to names. It is an amazing opportunity to get students involved in advocacy and to show leadership within the community.
The topic of mental health within our school board continues to grow in importance. This year, we are prioritizing student well-being by creating safe and supportive spaces for students to share their concerns through the Student Senate. With over 80,000 students in this district, the work is central to fostering a healthy, inclusive, and empowering learning environment. Within the Senate, focus groups such as Student Success, Student Voice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion will play a vital role in nurturing questions, ideas, and solutions. Alongside these groups, our regional representatives from Pickering-Ajax, Whitby, Oshawa, and the North will amplify initiatives by tailoring programs to meet the unique needs of their community. Together, these efforts bring forward a unified vision, a Senate that not only advocates for student well-being, but also models for leadership, collaboration, and character. To achieve this, we ask our trustees and staff for their continued support and partnership.
Thank you. Any questions for student trustees? Seeing none, we move on to the OPSPA update. Trustee Edwards.
Thank you. OPSPA Board of Directors meets approximately 4 times a year to discuss emerging issues and the impact of education, equity, and well-being. We met this past Friday and Saturday, September 26th and 27th. A significant amount of time was spent on discussing the impact of the proposed Bill 33, Supporting Children's Students Act 2024, which is in its second reading. The provincial government will return on October 20th, 2025, and this bill will be basically discussed at that time. You don't have to look very far in our media reports on what parents and students who attend schools in boards under supervision and the concerns that they've raised. And I've mentioned some of them previously around equity issues, well-being issues, as well as basically the elimination of the parent-caregiver voice. The removal of trustees' voice on the legislative committees like expulsion hearings, PIC, audit, and SEAC has also been raised. The Black Trustee Caucus reported on a meeting with the Ministry of Education to discuss the effect of accountability monitoring frameworks Building Sustainable Partnerships with Black Education Stakeholders, and the Ontario Human Rights Commission Dreams Delay Report. OSPA is the collective voice of public school boards. It sends communication of provincial updates summarizing emerging issues at the provincial and federal and local levels, leads us to changes, meetings, and seminars. It provides education on and advocacy across Canada. It does research reports through its working groups and various coalitions, and provides education on education matters. It does liaison with education partners like the School Board Association, other provincial trustee associations, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, Provincial Councils of Directors of Education, and the Ontario Public School Boards Officers Association. It supports the work of student trustees across Ontario through OSTO-AGO, which unites all students, four bodies of student trustees through the English Public, English Catholic, French Public, and French Catholic school systems. It acts as our labor council under the School Board Collective Bargaining Act. It has advocated in the past for the federally, for the National School Food Program, funding for the school program and the program. It basically has demonstrated that OSPA and locally elected trustees has and continues to make, in partnership with education partners and advocating for student success and well-being. We also reviewed sort of the timelines of what has been happening around Bill 33 and some of the media reports that have happened. It has been fairly quick and swift. It is important, basically the end of that conversation is what we can do to promote the voice of our local parents and community to the province of what the elimination of the role of trustee would do, and their voice, having their voice at the table both locally and provincially. And that is my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from trustees? Trustee Arsenault? Seeing no questions, you're just getting ahead of it, aren't you? Okay, moving to the next item is the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation update. Trustee Arsenault.
I'm a little bit overexcited. Thank you, Chair. I want to start with a heartfelt thank you to all the DDSB staff who contribute to Ignite Durham Learning Foundation through payroll giving. Your support is not just a donation, it's an investment into the lives of our students. Because of you, more children have food in their bellies, proper shoes for in school, winter coats, socks, and so much more, with access to the tools and opportunities they need to thrive. The difference that you all have made is felt every single day in our schools and our communities. For those who are not currently part of the payroll giving and may be interested in it, I encourage you to learn more about it on Spark or contact ignite.foundation@ddsb.ca. A small monthly contribution makes a big difference. Whatever you can give, it would be kind. One of the other big announcements is this communication with a new partnership for Ignite. The foundation has received a generous grant from Penny Apparel Canada These funds will ensure that the Muslim identifying students have access to culturally relevant clothing, halal food, prayer mats, and so much more. A special thanks to the Muslim Students Association across the DDSB and the Muslim Educators Network of Durham for their guidance. They've named and dedicated a new space at the depot, which is now called Rama. I hope I said that correctly. It's Rama's Corner, and what that means is compassion. And that's exactly what that space will represent. Finally, tonight I will say that I am proud to share with everyone that Ignite Durham Learning Foundation has been nominated for 2 spectacular awards through the Greater Oshawa Chamber of Commerce. IDLF has been nominated for the Nonprofit of the Year Award, as well as Executive Director Stacy Lemkeen Fisher has been nominated for Business Professional of the Year. In addition to that, IDLF has been nominated for the Nonprofit of the Year Whitby Chambers of Commerce Peter Perry Business Award. We're looking forward to celebrating with the Oshawa Chamber on October 1st and the Whitby Chamber on November 6th. We wish all the nominees and our director of Ignite and the very best, of luck. In closing, I'll just say thank you to all of those who have donated to Ignite throughout the year, and we look forward to more exciting news throughout the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Trustee Arsenault? Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is memos. There are 3 memos in the agenda package. From page 30 to 32, it's the Student Senate Leadership Award. From page 33 to 34, the generative AI tools approved for staff and student use. Trustee Cunningham?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I had a question about the generative AI tools. Yesterday, I had a parent flag to me that AI is known to bring forward anti-Semitic language. And when I did some research, I found both the Anti-Defamation League and Al Jazeera back that statement. And when I dug further, I saw that AI has been known to have quite a bit of racism in it, particularly anti-Black racism, because of the number of sources that it pulls from, whether credible or otherwise. And I saw that in sources like The Guardian, University of Chicago, Stanford. I'm a heavy AI user myself. I think that AI is here no matter whether people want it to be or not, and I think it is important for our staff and students to learn about this technology. I just wanted to know a bit about what we're putting in place to counter the fact that racism is so prevalent through these tools.
And I'll give it to Superintendent Macaulay.
Thank you for the care embedded in your question. As a district, we recognize that generative AI may reflect, rely on, and amplify biases and discriminatory assumptions or stereotypes present in its database, potentially resulting in biased and discriminatory outputs. The district's commitments to human rights and actively dismantling racism and discriminatory practices are infused in all training and include support, for example, through the leadership of anti-oppression leads in every single one of our schools. Training on awareness of bias in AI was part of mandatory training for all staff this past August, and it's paralleled in training to the teaching and learning of student use. When using generative AI tools and before sharing its results, staff and students should think about how reliable and trustworthy the technology is, such as confirming the output and seeking multiple perspectives. The awareness of factually incorrect bias or misleading information is cautioned directly within our DDSB guidelines on AI use. Specifically on page 3, or specifically number 3, references on page 4 for students and page 7 for staff, this very caution. Within the training for students on the safe and effective use of AI tools, teaching students how to identify bias in information brings together both the use and instruction on integrating technology, as well as the literacy curriculum skills for the evaluation of sources of information, bringing both of those together. So this is something we are continuing to monitor within the implementation, and will use feedback to further inform resource development.
Student Trustee Rendor?
Thank you, and through your chair, we just had some feedback to share as we reviewed the AI guidelines. While the document outlines how staff and students should use generative AI, it doesn't exactly address how students will be protected from stigma, especially related to concerns like plagiarism. For example, if a student openly discusses their use of AI having maintained academic integrity, they shouldn't be penalized for that transparency, particularly since these guidelines encourage responsible and ethical use for learning support. Could we consider including something in the guidelines to support teachers in handling these situations consistently and fairly? And if you'd like, I can elaborate on direct student experience if needed.
Thank you for your input and feedback.
Trustee Cowie?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I guess kind of following up to that, I'm curious about how and what will be done to help with understanding and looking at when it produces hallucinations, as well as when it's not getting it right, what it is doing in regards to for plagiarism, but also how it's mining data, especially when it comes to the fact of many people, academics and so on, have not approved of their stuff being used, and also misquoting or missaying. Certain people have written something, as someone who has been a victim of this with this system.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I think those are really important issues that you raise, and it goes back to generative AI as one source of information, and that importance of how we teach kids to triangulate sources and make sure that we are teaching them those effective resourcing. Within the comment around student use in classrooms, we want to make sure that it's transparent both within the learning process, the collaboration process, and the assessment process. So we've embedded that both within student training and staff training as well. But I think it goes to Gen AI as one tool within a structure of research that we need to be effectively teaching those practices for both staff and students in the resources in classroom and the student work produced.
Trustee Cowie?
Thank you, and through you, Chair. Another question I had, there has been a study that shows retention for students utilizing this is lowering, so they're not keeping what they're learning. So I'm wondering as well what will be done to counter that. Thank you.
Thank you, through your chair. I appreciate that, and we'll take that back to the team. That's a very important point. Again, one tool in the repertoire of learning skills, but something for us to definitely monitor. So thank you for raising that.
See no further questions on that memo. The last memo is at page 35 to 37, Student Achievement Plan, Family and Community Engagement Opportunities. Seeing no questions on that. Number 8, correspondence. There's 2 pieces of correspondence. Letter requesting reinstatement of kindergarten at Uxbridge Public School. And Trustee Morton.
Thank you. I'd like to draw your attention to the letter requesting reinstatement of kindergarten at Uxbridge Public School. Firstly, I want to thank Heather McDonald and her team for advocating for the French immersion program on behalf of the Uxbridge community families. I also want to thank the 40 local families who have supported the content of the letter. This letter is extremely well written and addresses many issues which we need to consider. Our single-track French immersion schools are no longer offering a kindergarten program. This decision to remove the kindergarten classes was made 3 years ago. Our concerned families are asking the DDSB to reconsider that decision. As we have heard recently, some areas of Durham have been impacted to a greater extent than others. It is our responsibility to provide equitable access to all learning opportunities for our students, both rural and urban. I realize that staff have been researching this matter and gathering necessary data regarding a French immersion and core French programs and how they're structured. I'm going to ask our director if she could address this topic and share with us the status of those discussions.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, and thank you, Trustee Morton. And so, Trustee Morton is absolutely correct. We have been undertaking this conversation since the first motion was passed for us to write a report. And as we engaged in that, our first report that was brought in the spring, we certainly recognized the layered impacts, not only of the challenges around enrollment and growth, but also the challenges around ensuring that we're equitable in the way that we address the problem. To Trustee Morton's point, this is not a challenge that is unique to one particular area of the board. It shows up in a number of our single track FI schools. And so as we look at the full complement of the system, the organization, we do recognize that there's also not one size fits all solution, because some of the reasons that we see impact on growth or impact on uptake differ from area to area. We certainly did have a presentation from an Ajax community group that came forward with a similar problem with some different solutions. So as we bring forward the report at the beginning of November to this board, our intention is to try to illuminate with some simplicity some of the layered, more complex issues that impact French immersion in single track schools, as well as uptake and enrollment, as well as some of the undertakings that we are committed to engage with to try to mitigate that problem in the shorter as well as the longer term.
And I wanted to check, because your mic was on, Student Trustee Shetty, did you want to speak?
I had a question regarding the SAP, but it's okay.
Okay. Seeing no further questions on that, the next one, the last letter, is letter supporting children's health and development through screen-free lunches and breaks. Any questions from trustees? Seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn? Trustee Pinello, seconder? Trustee Litton, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you.